Welcome to the Jira Life, the place to find news, events, and interviews with the Atlassian Community's movers and shakers. Join our hosts, Alex, Dr. Jira Ortiz, and Rodney, the Jira guy Nissen, as well as the Jira amigos in the peanut gallery, as we sit down and discuss the latest going on in the Atlassian ecosystem. Because we didn't choose the Jira Life, the Jira Life chose us.
The Jira Life.
Hello.
Hey, look in the nick of time.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah.
How are
Hello.
Oh, hi, guys. How you doing?
you? Is it late? What time is it?
Well, if we're looking at the time, it's probably late because it's 10 p.m. But
That's early.
I'm actually in the middle of a migration, so for me, the night hasn't even started, if you like. So
That's the best place to be.
well, I'm
Middle
so
of
excited though.
We get to relive this round 2.
Yes, really lovely, really lovely.
What time? You came on pretty early. No, I guess like it was the middle of the day for us, right? Like not noon.
Yeah,
It was one of the times. I mean, I've got here.
That 10-hour live stream, I will tell you, did not feel as draining. Like I was still mentally tired and done after
Did you
it.
enjoy it?
Did I enjoy it? I think I had higher expectations of the live stream. And deep down I was really hoping that Scott would join, but we got what we got.
We will get there someday. We'll get there someday.
And maybe we'll have MCB join us.
Oh yes, did you? Anyway, it's really fantastic, Rodney. Good to see you.
Yeah.
You know,
I watched the live stream as I was driving. Well, I was listening to the live stream as I was driving. I wasn't watching it. Let's be clear: do not watch YouTube videos while you drive.
No. It was just listening to it. It was in the car Bluetooth. It was in the Bluetooth speaker of the car.
Exactly. But I was listening to it, and I hated that I missed it.
The irony of that incident, though, no?
No, it feels wholly appropriate. But it is hilarious. We were going to get some maintenance done on my wife's car. And just to put this out there, being open with everyone, yesterday my wife was in an accident with said car.
Oh no.
And she's all right. Everyone was safe. But it's like we spend all this money to keep this car up, and then we don't know what's going to happen with the car itself.
Oh, sorry about that. I mean, it's great. Everyone's fine. I think that's
really. I try and I forget that often with the stress of everything, but that is the important part: is everyone's fine, no one was injured, because those things can turn ugly very quickly.
Yeah. So, Ty, I was restrained, if you will, on Saturday because I was not allowed to ask you any questions that I would have wanted to ask you. So I will let my amazing co-host here kick it off and ask, because I know that once I get started, it's gonna be a ride. So, Ronnie, what you got for Mr. Ty here?
Well, I mean, let's get started with the origin story. How did you become involved with Atlassian? I believe it involved one of the big 4 service companies, if I remember right. But yeah, tell us your story.
Yeah, so I started my consulting career with Deloitte. Actually, I started with a smaller consulting firm. Did my very first consulting gig with a much smaller consulting firm in London, and then I was headhunted or poached or called to Deloitte. Really interesting days, but with Atlassian, I never actually knew what Atlassian was. But then I had to do a job that involved Atlassian. And then I was sent on a training. A couple of days, it was called a boot camp, Jira boot camp. After 2 days Jira boot camp, I was the expert. You know, really, really lovely early days. But that was my first introduction to Atlassian, this tool called Jira. My first impressions was that it looked cool, except recently I had to do a migration from Jira 5, and looking back, it didn't look cool. But at the time, it looked so cool, compared to everything else. Um, so that was really where it got started. I noticed immediately that, and this was more than 10 years ago, I noticed immediately that this Atlassian was going to be popular. I knew that there was going to be a lot of demand for it, but it was also obvious that there were not many people doing it. And at the time, in fact, I think I joined my first sort of Atlassian community event. I didn't join an Atlassian community event until maybe 2016 or 17. So at the time, I didn't know that there was an Atlassian community or things like that, but it was just clear that this was something that could be a career, that this tool was, people liked it, they talked about it. Oh my God, the Scrum Masters and what do they call them, release train engineers, they love this tool. So, for me, it was something that you use for Scrum, and, it was clear that, this was going to be popular. This is something that I could sort of stake my career on. So I stayed with Atlassian beyond my consulting, days. Parts of the reasons why I left that consulting job was to actually become a contractor, doing Atlassian. And I, spent a few years on the road, worked for a number of very, very good companies, being their Atlassian expert or Atlassian. I've had many different names, in all of that time. But ultimately, I then got a job with a bank, which was at the time growing by acquisition. And we needed to bring together, different teams. It was really different banks within the acquisition, literally different companies with different history and different ways of doing things and different ways of working data and all of that. We needed to bring all of them together, and we're going to bring them together onto Jira. And this was really my first opportunity, to see how Jira could be really fantastic for, distributed teams, but also to see the potential of Jira for enterprise. So anyway, we introduced Skilled Agile to that company, and we introduced Jira as the tool for Skilled Agile. And that really was the beginning of me going from being a contractor to having a team, leading a team, and ultimately starting the company. That job was a big job that only I could not do, and they gave me the opportunity to build my own team and bring people together to deliver that. And shamelessly, I did poach one of my friends from Deloitte.
No shame in that.
You know, I had to find the best team, you know, to put together, to come together to do this delivery. And so I reached out to old friends and people who I had met on the Atlassian journey, and I put together a team, and we delivered a really, really fantastic job. But then when that job was over, we had to think about, you know, what next? Do we all go away and everyone's going back into contracting, or how do we, you know, what do we do next? And this was really the birth of Alluvium. And so you know, what we then needed to think about is, okay, what's Atlassian's vision? Where's Atlassian going? Can we pitch our tent on that train, right? Can we, you know, take a carriage in their train and literally try and see whether there was something that was unique that we could bring into the market. Of course, at the time it was all just in London and around the UK. You know, Nigeria hadn't come into the picture at all. And now we've also got the US. How Nigeria came into the picture was really interesting, because when I was looking and thinking about what's going to be, you know, really what do we want to do with this Atlassian thing, one of the things at the time was Atlassian had just sort of introduced Atlassian Cloud. It wasn't called Cloud at the time, but Atlassian SaaS, like they've introduced this SaaS product, you know, and it was clear that there was a trajectory in the place this was going to be, how this was moving. So what we wanted to do was to build a migration tool between cloud to cloud, for cloud to cloud. So this was end of 2018 going into 2019. At the time, Atlassian had, of course, started building their own migration tool from server to cloud, but we wanted to build a tool from cloud to cloud. So we started to develop the tool which today has now become Scrum Companion. And so the idea was you could take a project, and that project you could just with a click of a button migrate from one cloud site to another. And so then the reason we focused on a project rather than the site is because, remember, we've been working with release trained engineers. We've been working safe, skilled out, and sort of RTEs like this thing where, you know, you can have, if you go to PI planning, you know, you can have all the teams have their own project, single project, where the team or the delivery, you know, that release delivery has its own independent sort of team, if you like. So we wanted to get on the back of that, build something that, you know, the agile people could be really, really excited about, but also, given our own strength at engineering, wanted to do migration. And again, we have always been a migration team. We've always been about migration. That's always been something that excites us, always been our bread and butter, even before we became a company. So we wanted to build that tool. I think coming into 2018, we had a script library for migrations that was maybe, you know, dozens of scripts. So the idea is bring these things together, make it relevant to, you know, to the Scrum people, and then we started. So we did successfully build a cloud to cloud migration tool, and then we thought maybe we could sell it to Atlassian, or maybe, you know, something like that, only to find out that Atlassian were building their own cloud to cloud migration tool. that's a different story. Anyway,
You should have still tried to sell it though, because I used their cloud to cloud migration tool a few years ago, like in 2021, and it sucked back then. So
it sucked back then. It was,
I haven't used it recently, but I'm assuming it still sucks.
actually, it's much better. It's much better. They have a they have a tool now that's called Copy Jira Data, Copy Confluence Data, and what it does is effectively the one you used, that cloud to cloud migration tool from a couple of years back, was terrible because of how it worked. It effectively did what sort of our tool does, or did at the time. It's not really a complete migration. What they have today is a complete migration. You will get a result that's similar to, in the old days when we used to be able to do XML, migration. You get literally a site copy that sort of lifts and shifts. And that's absolutely fantastic. I used it in a recent migration. I think that was good. But, that initial cloud to cloud was, well, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's how we started. So, how did we get to Nigeria? So we had this vision. We're going to build this tool. It's going to be amazing. And then we want that to be the migration tool on the Atlassian marketplace. And then, so as part of that development, something that happened a few years before, when we were doing a job in 2016, that job required us to, we were involved in building the paper-free solution for one of the banks in England. And as part of that, we had to collect data from different systems, bring it together, normalize the data, put it into a data lake, and then we can pull out a statement from the data lake, all with the same sort of data type, regardless of how the data got in. Do you see what I mean? So we can standardize the output across the bank, regardless of whether you were, a customer of one of the 7 sub banks within their org. Now, one of the banks that they bought had a very, very old system. None of us knew how to. None of us knew how to do anything with the data. We didn't even know how to, code or do whatever with the data. And so we needed help. And we were at the time trying to find somebody who could, code that old language. I was everywhere trying to see if we could hire someone, and we couldn't. But one day, we had just a normal stakeholders meeting, and this line had been read on our plan for months and months. And so one of the guys just said to me after that boardroom meeting, he said, you said that the problem with this red line was resource. And I said, yes. He said, really? What skills are you looking for? And I described, in fact, we had an advert, sort of sent him that by email. And then he said, oh, I'm going to give you a number for somebody in India. You call them, send this to them, and they'll find you somebody to do it. And I thought, no, that's not going to happen. Well, let's try. So we tried to do that. And then I was so surprised how quickly they could find someone to do literally anything in India, like anything programming. That was a revelation. So that solved our problem. So when we came to 2019 and we wanted to build this migration tool, the first thing that came to my mind is we had to do some sort of outsourcing. We have to look for talent beyond London, right? Make sure that we're building this with the best talent. And so, I looked around. I spoke to friends in India, And then someone also said to me, did you know that, Lagos is a tech hub? Now, I am from Nigeria. I travel to Nigeria every year. I never knew that my home was a tech hub. I'm serious. I never ever knew that. Because of course I went home to relax and enjoy, and I do charity work, and we do a lot of work with schools and in education and helping young people into programming and all of that. But never did I think that there was huge potential there. And again, a couple of years later, you would have Mark Zuckerberg coming to Nigeria. You'd have, all of these guys coming to Nigeria to take advantage of this tech hub. But at the time, it did not occur to me. So I went to Nigeria. I thought, yes, this is home. Let's go home. Let's empower, where I come from and get all these developers. And then that's where the journey to Nigeria came from. I went to Lagos, spent a little while, and said, well, can I find developers? They have to be able to build what we want, how we want. And then that's how we got to Nigeria. So we became a British Nigerian company. We were doing our project management from London, our front office, all of these things from London, and then some of the development at the start, but now most of the development from Nigeria. And that's how our journey got to before we got to the US. Right.
Yeah.
Then you get to the
yeah. I want to hold up right there because I know as soon as I let Alex go, he is going to go.
I'm holding back. Don't worry.
Last year, and you mentioned Lagos was a tech hub, and I think I've heard that on a news story somewhere, but it didn't really click until last year. About this time, I get a message from Lewis saying, hey, we're doing this conference here in Nigeria. We would love to have you speak remotely. And first off, that's two things that just blew me away. Is first, I have fans there. And two, who's there listening? Wait. And I started doing some research, trying to look things up, and oh, people are going to be there. For sure. And after that, it was a no-brainer. Yes, let's do this. I'm on board 100%. But that's where I first heard of Alluvium, and I've been kind of watching you guys grow and develop since then.
I had a very similar experience talking with Mike at the ACE recently. I was I didn't come in with any expectations, but watching the pictures of the event, I was like, wow, there's a lot of people. A lot of people.
Usually you don't get to see the room, because the camera is usually pointed at the stage and the person is talking to you and interviewing you. But the love and the strength of tech in Africa, would blow you away. And yes, Rodney, you do have a lot of fans. Coming up to Cloud Connect, in fact, it's interesting because I heard about the Jira guy, not in London, not from an ACE, and I've been involved in ACE events for a while. I heard about the Jira guy from a Google event locally in Nigeria. And that's very interesting. And Lewis, whom you mentioned, is a absolutely fantastic guy. He connects everybody. He's a connector guy. He knows everyone. He's linked to everybody. And he said, Ty, you don't know the Jira guy? You don't know the Jira guy? Surely you do. No, I don't know. No, seriously. Okay. And straight away there, I was checking it out. I'm like, oh, this is amazing, and Rodney, you I don't know if you still have your blog. You have your blog. You have all of that, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. This is fantastic. Years and years and years ago, I wanted to do a blog. At the time, just blogging all things Atlassian. I got too busy, but I also got to appreciate those who are consistent, like you guys. So whether it's podcasting, it's blogging, it's whatever content thing, it's not easy. It's tough. And the fact that you guys do it, Alex, you published some numbers recently, and I thought, I hope you know how amazing it is that you're able to do that. It really is amazing. Thank you guys, and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, no, it's definitely crazy.
Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say the fact that Rodney's at a Google event. my favorite was I just found Rodney through folks that mispronounce Jira, and how do you correctly pronounce Jira? And I Googled it the other day, like 2 weeks ago, and the very first article was from the Jira guy. And Rodney, full shame, but full disclosure, it's probably the first article that I've Googled that I found you without going to your website directly. So that was just know that people are looking for you for at least when they try to figure out how to pronounce Jira. For me, a little fun story to share. I had somebody look up, like, they're like, you have a YouTube channel? I'm like, yeah, just Google anything in Jira. And he's like, types in, why does Jira suck? As a search, and sure enough, I got a video. So that's my goal. My goal has been to every Google questioned my video. I have a video for that question.
That's interesting. It's really lovely. Back in Nigeria, you'd be surprised about the growth of tech. We even have unicorns, local unicorns. And that's how much tech's grown locally. And of course, most people are not sort of exposed to what's happening in that part of the world. Everyone knows outside of Europe and America, India is it's got some big tech hubs, and it's not just the big ones that people know. There are some new tech hubs that are coming up, and they're doing huge numbers when it comes to startups and what startups are raising, the solutions they're building, and all of that. I was at the World Economic Forum in Davos in January this year, and I happened to be going to a session, and I got pulled in by some guys on the street. Oh, do you want to see what's happening in India? Yes, I said yeah. So I got in there. There's an exhibition about Chennai, in India, and the numbers are amazing. And it's exactly the same, in Africa, in Nigeria, in South Africa, in Egypt. There are startups that are doing absolutely amazing things, and wonderful solutions. And this is the reason why I'm really excited about Atlassian for Startups. And we started doing a campaign about that, and reaching out to some of those startups. Yeah. And throwing our own support, on top of that, so it's really interesting.
What are your thoughts on like you're mentioning, like we're seeing a lot more development, technology, software, right? Startups in general coming out of regions of the world that aren't usually like the US, right? Like for me, being a California native, even within the United States, for a company to not be based out of Silicon Valley, right? Like it's just mind-blowing to me sometimes, right? But we're seeing that a lot more, right? Like we're seeing the globalization of, as more and more people get access to like internet and stuff like that. Do you see English being like a barrier, or does it help people? Does it hurt people? Like, or is it? Do we need more content in like respective native languages? What are your thoughts there?
So we do a lot of work. So with my foundation, we do a lot of work in Nigeria, usually in the far to reach places. And one of the things we do is we teach young people, children, tech in their own language. And there's a reason for that. Many years ago in the University of Ibadan, there were some professors at the time who used to teach maths in Yoruba language. And when you're teaching people about fundamental concepts, they've got to understand it first before we talk about how they communicate it. But again, Silicon Valley is like a birthplace, for tech. It's where everything started with computers and all of that, but the solutions to some of the biggest problems in the world are going to come from the places and the experiences that have those problems. It's no longer the case that solutions will get imported, from the US. If you go to China, to Japan, as if you go to to Latin America, South America, people are building solutions to local problems. I mean, I just said now about unicorns. There's a unicorn in Nigeria. All the solution was built in Nigeria to local Nigerian problem, and they sold $1 billion in Nigeria.
I don't remember which part of Africa Mark Rober was in recently in one of his videos, but there's a African community building medical equipment deliveries that can get to rural areas, just small towns that don't have access to transportation easily. And that is all engineered, designed, created, manufactured in that local community. So it's interesting to see. For me, again, being a U.S. native born and then California born, it's definitely like I'm much more appreciative, right, of like the fact that there's a much broader world out there. Maybe if I was like an international traveler like Ed Gill, like
Yes.
I mean, Alex, I keep trying to drag you out, and you keep refusing to get the passport, which is just step one.
I know.
What we could do, we could drag Alex out to Nigeria. We could, Alex, you need to get that passport. We'll take you to Nigeria. You spend a week, and then we'll go to India.
My church does a lot of work in Kenya. So our church sends a lot of compassion groups and teams out to the Kenya region, just to build schools and mainly to build schools and resources of that nature. So maybe I might want to get a passport now.
You should. I mean, and if it's any comfort, Alluvium are in Kenya. We have an office in Kenya. We have a team in Kenya, in Nairobi. And, I know there's one of your friends that's going to be thinking right now, Meru, we've got to come to Meru. And so, yes, we'll go up the hills to Meru, at some point in Kenya. But
yeah,
we're
I think though, if I were to go to Africa, like the one place I would love to go is I wanted to go see the Egyptian pyramids, like really, really badly. if I had to pick a place outside.
Yes, and I think that you would enjoy them. Make sure that if you're going to see pyramids, that you don't just go to see the Egyptian pyramids.
I've had some pretty cool ones in Mexico too, but it's I have a thing for pyramids. So fun fact in case anybody ever wants to do like Alex trivia, right? I went to Cal State Long Beach, the university here in California. And the only reason I went to Cal State Long Beach is because the university's gym is a pyramid. There's only 3 pyramids in the whole United States. There's one in Memphis, Tennessee. Las Vegas, Nevada has another one, and Long Beach, California has a third. So I love pyramids.
and Ed has a vision of you on a camel.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. There are some there are some really cool pyramids beyond Egypt. You've got to travel through Egypt to the Sudan. You got to go to Nubia, and you will see, so the pyramids in Egypt are really, really cool, of course, and they're quite popular. But don't be the tourist that only goes to see what is online.
Well, I get that. The Egyptian ones have a special place because my 5th and 6th grade professor or teacher, he loved Egyptian artifacts. So every assignment was always around Egyptian artifacts. So, yeah, if I could, like, I would have way more Egyptian artifacts in my house, but my wife doesn't. Not necessarily want me to put Anubis and all those kind of Osiris and gods in my house. So. But yeah,
I mean, fair enough.
But yeah, Egyptian pyramids is first on my list, and then I'll hit the rest of the pyramids. But I want to go. I don't want to leave this earth without having seen those pyramids one day.
And of course, if you're going to see the pyramids in Egypt, I mean, get the passport first, but go to Egypt, and then maybe you might want to come with me next year to see China and to see the Great Wall. Maybe we can do an Atlassian.
We gotta do like a book tour / travel tour, man. Maybe I do gotta get a passport. Watch me become like an international traveler. That would be a thing.
Yeah, that would
okay,
be nice.
Sean Doyle. I think maybe you, me, and maybe 2 other people would get that reference.
I don't get that reference.
So I think that the really fantastic thing about America is everything. That you could live your entire life as an American and not travel, and you wouldn't. Well, maybe you would have missed something, but you wouldn't have missed much.
Try living in LA, man. We have everything in LA, right? Like every region of every part of the world, there's a little bit of everybody lives in LA.
Exactly.
It's not like other cities. Like when I lived in St. Louis, like there was 2 races and that was it. Like there wasn't a whole lot of anything, right? Not like I was so surprised when I heard somebody speak Spanish when I lived in St. Louis. I like almost ran up to them and gave them a hug because I'm like, it had gone like 6 months without hearing anyone speak Spanish. It was just so weird. And I know other cities are very much like that, but LA, even though we have a huge Hispanic population, the LA County area, right? It's you got mixes from all over the world, so I don't really have to go too far to get culturally.
Exactly. So,
I mean, yes, but there's also a perspective you get actually being there and experiencing what people are talking about, what people are seeing, what people are doing there that you can't replicate by talking to someone from there in the US.
Yeah.
Which is why I keep trying to drag you out of the country, Alex.
Get me to Atlanta first. No, but I think you're onto something. Like, there's something special about that, though, right? Because, like, you said something really powerful with this whole like local problems, right? Because when I look at my son, right, I got a 12-year-old, and I'm trying to figure out like, what's he gonna do? I think we're getting to points where a lot of technology has already been invented, right? A lot of technology has already been solved. And so we're watching Bill Gates has a documentary on Netflix of like inside the mind of Bill Gates, right? And trying to solve a waterless toilet, right? A whole sanitation system for, again, remote areas around the world that don't have access to technologies and waters and electricity and all the things we take for granted and almost die if we don't have them, right? And like there's so many problems that I don't think like unless my son goes and like experiences those things, like it's really hard to get those perspectives.
Yes. So I mean, perspective is really, really critical thing. You don't know what you don't know. And I saw a I saw a show on Broadway called Mormon, might as well
I was gonna
say,
say Hamilton because that's the best show on Broadway. I
called
love
Book of
Hamilton.
Mormon, I think it's called. And one of the things that intrigued me about there was a scene that was really very much about contradictions, and so in that scene there were sort of missionaries that went to to some kids and something, and but it was about these kids from a remote part. To them, what heaven is to them is the gifts that these missionaries bring. um and I thought about that, and that was very, very interesting. Me being in the audience, I am a village boy. I'm a really village local boy. I was born and I grew up in an African village, and when my family moved to London I was a boy. I also moved to a very, very close knit community. Besides London being a massive city, where I grew up could be a village. Everything was very, very within the same community. For a long time, I didn't travel. It's like you grew up in the Silicon Valley or somewhere in California. You have everything around you. You don't. You have to be intentional to travel. But its perspective is really from experience. It's you, and in this case, opening up opportunities to actually see what's going on and actually be there to experience what's going on, to then use that to find solutions, right? Because Bill Gates is doing a really amazing job around the world with with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the problems that they want to solve. You know, of course, they're really going to get those solutions um, on the ground. So their investment will have to focus on local content, because there's been many, many times when people have good intention and they do want to help and they do invest, but what they think you need is not what you need. Another example, there was a group of young people that even we as local people, I spend a few months every year, um, back home. Even as a local lad, I thought I knew what this group of young people needed. And I went to talk to them and said, well, I'm thinking of giving you X. And they said, that's not what we want. What we want is Y. And your mind is blown. You're like, really? Really? How could you want that? And then they'll explain to you, actually, it's more important to us that we look after the day to day than you're trying to give us something that helps us in 10 years or 15 years or whatever.
Yeah.
We don't care about that.
So I guess I wonder how then the shift of the information changes, right? Because like I'm trying to articulate thoughts. So, like so much is running through my head. Like in Latin America, right? I'll just speak to my background, right? Like my family comes from a small town or small village in Mexico, right? And my mom's consistently like always sending resources to because she still has family members there. And my mom always goes like she's asks me for resources and stuff, and I go, well, I don't have anybody there. Like I don't necessarily I never grew up in that town, right? So like I don't empathize with that town. And my challenge back to her is always if they all have access to the internet, they should have the ability to not be like they can change their outcome, right? Like they now have access to technology that maybe you growing up as a child didn't, right? And so when you scale that out across, like, again, like third world countries, like all of Latin America, right? You look at, like, okay, so now people have access to information, right? Like Jira is available everywhere, but how come people don't? Like, what? There's got to be something missing, because them locally, for their perspectives, and now that they have information, like, why aren't they?
Well, I mean, you have to look at it. Do they have someone to teach them, and B, someone to teach them in a language they can understand? We're very privileged that as English speakers, we could communicate with the global language and understand and learn things from all over the world. If you don't speak English, most of the internet isn't accessible to you. It might as well be gibberish. And this is one reason I was so excited to see Latin creators, Portuguese speaking, all the friends we now have in Europe, even the events down in Lagos, is because these are people who are taking the work to translate and teach people in the culture they understand, in the language they understand, in the methods they understand, so they could have that opportunity.
So is that the problem we should try to solve then, is spread of information in natural languages?
Well, there's some opportunity there. Also, technology is expensive. It's not necessarily cheap. In fact, it's not cheap at all. Technology is expensive, and I mean IT technology. Everything from a laptop. Of course, everybody has a smartphone. Everybody has a smartphone. All around the world, people will invest, as expensive as it is. Everyone has a smartphone, which is really good, but it's not cheap. It is not cheap. And this is where, of course, there's opportunities from a lot of sort of Android phone makers who have made a lot of money, coming out of places outside of the United States, manufacturing sort of cheaper alternatives to laptops and phones and all that. But information is not cheap. Access to internet is not universal, right? It's actually very expensive in most places, because most people access the internet via mobile, sort of either mobile device or mobile tethering. Us as a company, we used to spend what an American or a European would not believe is possibly internet bill. Huge amount of money, on our campus, out in Ekiti, in Nigeria. We spent a lot of money because we had 3 mobile networks through which we would have to get onto Amazon's server to then do work, to be able to keep up the quality of connectivity that we need to be able to serve our customers. But then, luckily, here comes Starlink, from our friend. And then, with Starlink and other internet solutions that are not mobile based, you get a better connection. And I think Facebook does also aspire to do a similar solution at very, very low cost. But I think my point to you, Alex, is it's not cheap to connect to the internet. It's not cheap for the connectivity. It's not cheap for the hardware that you need, but also the language barrier makes it even more difficult. And, of course, I think that by the time your son is our age, there'd probably be so many satellites out in space that it probably won't cost anything at all to connect to the internet. The same way today, SMS costs nothing. The internet will probably
Oh, I
cost nothing.
remember when the SMS was expensive here in the US. You used to count who you were sending those text messages to.
But I mean, even then, we still have, and you touched on this, the technology itself expensive. I mean, $100 laptop sounds cheap to an American. But when that $100 is your monthly income, it gets real hard to justify that expense on that piece of equipment. And that's like the bare minimum.
Has anybody ever done a how much data does Jira consume analysis? Because I know I had a friend who worked at Facebook, and her job was to make a version of Jira, of Facebook, that could run on the slowest device with the lowest amount of resources with virtually no internet, right? And I'd be curious to see if anybody at Atlassian is working on like a resource light version of Jira that can help companies and teams that are organically growing in these regions be productive, right? Be that work first type of thing that Atlassian preaches so much, but not take up the, because I can imagine if you're trying to use Jira and it's using up like 50% of your allocated bandwidth, like that can't be good.
I think you need to cut the last 30 seconds of this show and send it to MCB.
Like, well, because it's interesting, right? Because Atlassian has their 1% pledge, right? But it'd be interesting to have like an Atlassian philanthropy department where they're actively working to help, because like again, that perspective that you brought, like there's so many local communities around the world that are solving real local problems, but they don't necessarily have access to the tools because of whatever reasons they are. That it'd be interesting to see like a Jira Lite that could really help people be collaborative and be supported in more natural languages, and see what happens, right? see what comes out of those areas.
Absolutely.
Well, we're down to the last few minutes, and I didn't get to ask any of my questions, so we'll have to bring you back again, Ty.
Well,
Alex, I'll give you one question.
My one question will take up the whole time, so let's just roll with it.
All right. Well, if Alex won't ask you one question, I'll ask you 5.
Oh yeah.
So, Ty, we do this thing on the show called Quick Quizlet. We pick 5 questions out of this pool of questions we have, and the idea is to give your most honest answer as quickly as possible. After each question, we'll give you a chance to explain your answer if so you want to. But again, we want your first answer as quickly as possible so it can be as honest as possible.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so first question.
Hey, wait, did you tell them though? I have to also agree with your answers.
Alex will judge you on your answers. That is true.
Okay.
So the first question, this one's a nice, easy one. Do you prefer to drink coffee or tea?
Tea. All day, every day.
Never mind. I take the Ted Lasso approach on tea. It's just hot water.
Well,
I mean, it's hot leaf juice, but it's delicious hot leaf juice.
Oh, yeah, but again, if you're drinking chai masala tea, it's healthy hot leaf. It's spicy.
I'll just stick to water.
All right. So you see it a set of stairs. Does it go up or does it go down?
Up.
Where'd you get that question from?
It's been on there for a while, Alex.
Up. Always up.
You see the stairs? Wait, you got the stairway to heaven? They gotta go down sometimes.
But do they?
I think it's up.
Doesn't it matter where you're standing?
And this is why we don't give Alex this question.
What is the meaning of life?
All right,
Even
so
your boss
next
is not the
question.
best question.
Do you prefer Atlassian Cloud or Atlassian Data Center?
Atlassian Cloud, because of the AI module.
Fair enough. Would you rather get an email message or Slack message?
Slack message. What's email?
This is why Ty wasn't responding back to our messages.
What is email?
All right. And what should be the last status of a workflow? Should it be closed or should it be done?
Right. You're going to get me in trouble with all my strictly agile friends and people. Actually,
and enemies at this point.
No, you
become enemies.
You know, you should have started with this and given us 60 minutes to debate it. But you know, this is my personal opinion, and I'll have to wrap around a lot of disclaimer around it. But my answer is done.
I think Ed has a love-hate relationship with his ex key because he just keeps calling me Al.
Yes, I mean, so resolved is the resolution, but the status is done. So
I guess so. Yeah, let's start another 60-minute conversation. What does done mean?
Well,
like, when do you know when you're done?
So, you know, is it done? Is it done closed? Is it done won't do? Is it, you know, what, you know, it's done, but how is it done? Is it done I won't do it? Is it done you know, but
those are the mystery questions that keep us up at night.
I'm glad no one has gone with the chaos answer yet.
Just finished.
Done is when you have met the definition of done.
You know what? That's an interesting. Yes, but then what is the definition of done? But also, I've never seen finished as a status in Jira, and I'm going to start putting it everywhere.
Finished? What does that mean?
Are you going to blame the Jira guy when you do it?
Can we do start? Start as an initial transition, and then finished.
Yeah. So you know, just to say, you know, thank you again for bringing me. I didn't quite get to our journey to America, but what we're so excited about now is we are now an Atlassian partner, solution partner in America, and this marks the beginning of the next step of our journey. We, of course, it's interesting to think of us as a new solution partner because of our experience and expertise and the strength that we bring to the ecosystem and to the market and all of that. But we are a new partner in America, and we are quite excited about this. So you're going to hear a lot more about that in the next few weeks.
Where are you based out of in America?
Connecticut.
Where else?
Where else?
California, baby. Don't do business in California. This is the worst state to do business. The worst place.
I'll tell you where. I'll tell you where else. Orlando, Florida. You thought I would say California.
I'll take anything but California to do business.
See the advantage.
Yeah, we can't ever get you out of California.
Dude, it's 111 degrees right now. I might be getting out tomorrow because it's going to be 112 tomorrow.
I mean, you could always visit me, Ed, and Bob in Atlanta next week.
No, this is the worst part. I could literally go to Vegas right now, and it's colder than where I'm at right now.
Really?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I pay a lot of money to always have that be the reverse.
Well, the last thing I do want to say is Ed and everyone, you know, in the Jira Life, seriously, I'd like to have you guys host you guys in Nigeria in 2025. So you have your 1 year's notice. We'll take a quick trip. You know, we do not just Nigeria. We do Lagos, Accra, Nairobi, and then we can do Egypt. We can do Egypt. Actually, no, we'll do Egypt on your way out. We start from Lagos, and then we go up. We'll finish.
So we get all the good stuff done first, and then we deal with Egypt.
Yes, and then we'll do Egypt for the pyramids. I think that would be really lovely. 2025, get that passport, and let's talk about, let's make that happen.
Ty becomes the person that convinces me to get a passport.
I mean, I'll take it if that's what it takes. Well, Ty, we want to thank you for being on here. It has been an honor. We definitely need to have you back because I don't think we're done talking with you yet. I also want to thank our members who help support the Jira Life.
Our new member.
Matt, that's Matt Dorr, Sean Doyle, Lacey, Sharon, Ed Gale, Stu Lees, and Andy Gladstone, better known as Online Andy. A change you'll start seeing next week, actually, speaking of Stu Lees, is starting next week, we will have a banner sponsor. Revise will be joining us, helping support and help us make the Jira Life.
Was that the surprise he was going to announce? Are you spoiling?
Too bad. We're announcing it now.
It's announced.
It is now announced.
Everybody forget the last 30 seconds of your life and act surprised next week.
Just act surprised.
Oh my God.
I am so excited about this because it's going to allow us to do so much more. I think he's just busy today.
Well, Ty, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm going to be speaking to Ed about starting a community in Connecticut. Ed is the community champion. Thank you for all that you do at Gale. But
Ed is everywhere. Ed is everywhere you need him to be.
Well, except where I can actually get a taste of his barbecue.
Probably not Connecticut though.
Ed will bring barbecue anywhere if you give him half a chance.
Just not California, right? Because we just have hot dogs and burgers.
That's not barbecue, my friend. That's grilling.
Thanks so much, guys. I'm going to get back to migration.
Go to your migration.
This is absolutely fantastic hour. Last few hours has been raking my head and dealing with issues and trying to get migration to work. And this last hour has been really relaxing. It's really, really good opportunity to take my eyes off the work and get this done. So
I will jump back into the fire.
Yes, straight back into the barbecue pan. Bye-bye.
Bye. And for all our guests, again, bye to you as well. And as we always say, we didn't choose the Jira Life. Jira Life chose us. Thanks for watching.
We need to have.
Thank you for listening to the Jira Life. Our hosts are Alex, Dr. Jira Ortiz, and Rodney, the Jira Guy, Nissen. You can find Alex on YouTube at 8Tech Tutorials, and Rodney's blog is found over at thejiraguy.com. Our producers are Robert King Bob Wen and Lina Ortiz. You can catch us live as we record this podcast every Thursday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on YouTube at The Jira Life. Be sure to join us and our other Jira Amigos of the Peanut Gallery every week to ask your questions, let us know your comments, and just tell us what you're up to. But if you can't join us live, you can still catch the replay over on YouTube. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell while you're watching. We're also available as a podcast over on Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you listen to it and think it deserves a rating, we would very much appreciate it, as it will help others discover the Jira Life. Because we didn't choose the Jira Life. The Jira Life chose us.